our State House studio in Montgomery. I'm Todd Stacy. Welcome to Capitol Journal. Day 21 of the legislative session is in the books, leaving us 9 more possible days that the legislature can meet over the next month. We'll start our rundown of coverage in the Senate, where lawmakers took up the general fund budget. It totals $3.3 billion and includes a 2% pay raise for state employees. The supplemental appropriations bill traveling alongside it totals $210 million, including $150 million set aside for the prison construction project. Senator Greg Albritton, who chairs the Senate General Fund Budget Committee, credited procedural changes and the legislature's conservative approach in recent years for the state having a relatively healthy budget.
I'm proud of the way Alabama has handled its funds over the last number of years. We've made some hard decisions early on, from 11 through 15, 16. The savings accounts we've set up, the procedures of not trying to spend every dime, trying to put caps on what we can adjust so that we can't just make up numbers. We've made huge steps in that regard, and that's why we're having surpluses, is because we've been careful along that. Most people don't see that, but we've gone from being broke every year to the point that we have excess funds, and we are capable of exercising control over spending that.
We've gotten to a good place with Alabama's budgets, Alabama's fiscal health, as a result of being conservative. We can't lose that motion, because down elements of our economy will come eventually. We've got to be well prepared to be able to deal with that. I think if you look at some things that have been very popular that this general fund has highlighted, Alabama's got quite a bit of resource that's been in the bank. We've earned a lot of interest income. That's been a great boost to the overall numbers within the budget. However, if interest rates go down, then that will not be nearly as robust as it's been. So we've got to be real cognizant of what's not only making wise choices for today, but know what's coming in the future.
The Senate did not take action on the request from the House to form a conference committee on the gambling package. The two chambers passed vastly different plans, and Senate President Pro Tem Greg Reed said that a conference committee will likely happen when lawmakers return on Tuesday.
The definition of where the chambers are can only be evaluated based on that the two bills, the Senate bill and the House bill, were very different. I'm very comfortable with the Senate bill. I think we did some things that were very different, and I think that's what our members were looking for, so I'm very happy with the bill. But I've made a commitment already, and we'll say it again, the bill is going to come out of the basket. There is going to be a conference committee, and that committee can do its work and negotiate, which is the process, and then come back to both bodies and determine where we go next.
Look, I'm no gambler, all right? I think it's a poor investment, but we have it extensively in the state, and we've got to get a control of this. We've got to get it regulated, but evidently the legislature is not in agreement with me on that. So if we don't have the regulation, then we're not going to have the taxation, and if we don't have the taxation and the regulation, we get no revenue from it, and we're just going to have to watch it grow.
In the House, lawmakers worked through a mostly non-controversial agenda of bills. One piece of legislation is meant to help keep contraband out of Alabama prisons. House Bill 345 from Representative Matt Simpson would prohibit the flying of drones over correctional facilities. Simpson said that's one way drugs and cell phones are being smuggled behind bars.
It makes it illegal for people to fly drones over state penitentiaries. We had a number of issues where people were dropping contraband, weapons, phones, drugs, into inmates, and so this bill will prevent that and be able to allow law enforcement to go after the people that have drones and that use drones to bring contraband into our prisons. This is the Department of Corrections bill. They came to me. I'm on the Joint Prison Oversight Committee. We had several conversations with the Department of Corrections as what can we do to help make the interior safety, to make sure that the overdoses the attacks, things of that nature, the cell phone use that's going on. What can we do as a legislative body to help them get what they need? And this was one of their recommendations. If we can do something to help prevent drones from being used to drop that contraband behind the lines of the prison, they thought that would be able to help this. This is something that's starting to go on nationwide. It's an issue that's come up in Georgia, it's come up in South Carolina, Oklahoma. I know their legislatures have looked into it. We were able to see that this isn't just a run-of-the-mill, some girl with a girlfriend sends something over with a boyfriend. This is an organized, very detailed, highly sufficient operation that goes on through this stuff. We've been able to keep drones from outside the state that have been coming to this state with the sole purpose of being able to drop information through. So this is something that becomes, as technology increases, the criminal mind will increase as well. So this is what they're doing now to get things in, and we're trying to catch up with the times and make sure that we can stop that.
That bill passed and now goes to the Senate. News on the election front. Alabama Secretary of State Wes Allen this week sent a letter to the Democratic National Committee warning that if nothing changes, President Joe Biden could be left off the November ballot. That's because Alabama's nomination certification deadline is August 15th, 4 days before Biden is expected to be officially nominated at the Democratic National Convention. The state has been in this situation before, actually. In 2020, it was Republican Donald Trump that was at risk from being left off the ballot because of the same issue. The legislature intervened and granted a provisional exception. Legislation has now been filed in the State House to do the same thing in this situation. And Senate President Pro Tem Greg Reed said it's only fair to allow that to pass and ensure access to the ballot.
I made an accommodation at the end of the day to make sure the bill could get introduced. I've not read the bill. I don't know exactly what they're asking for, but the idea that we would look for a level playing field for everybody involved in the election process is probably something that I would support. I think it's an attitude that we have to be cognizant of. Again, I don't know the details of what they're asking for, but I did want it to have an opportunity to be introduced today.
When we come back, I'll be joined by APT's 2024 Young Heroes, high school seniors nominated for their exceptional academic and community service achievements despite significant personal adversity. After that, Rhonda Mann from Voices for Alabama's Children will join me to talk about the Kids Count data book that was released today. Stay with us.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts. Keep up with what's happening with Capital Journal.
Welcome back to Capital Journal. This week, Alabama Public Television is proud to honor this year's Young Heroes. Each year, APT honors a group of high school students who have demonstrated academic excellence, active participation in their community, and the courage to persevere in the face of adversity.
Part of the mission of Alabama Public Television is highlighting the stories that don't get told and shining a light on folks who do remarkable things in this state. They've got exciting futures ahead of them, and we're excited to be part of helping them get to the next step.
Is recognize young heroes, and those are young people that are thriving in our state and thriving in their education and their goals and where they're going, despite some circumstances, some difficulties that they've been through. But once again, we had the dinner last night and was able to go and meet these young people. And I am constantly encouraged in my position when I meet, and we get to meet these type groups from time to time of young people, and it gives me hope in our future, that our future is bright.
This year's Young Heroes are Madeline Doster of Enterprise, Philip Moss of Vestavia Hills, Patricia Orsi and Catherine Orsi of Wetumpka, Clara Parker of Tuscaloosa, and Caitlin Shaneyfelt of Gunnersville. The students will receive a $10,000 scholarship to the school of their choice, a laptop computer, and other prizes. And we are pleased to have these exceptional students here in studio. Let me just say congratulations to our young heroes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. Let me just ask, we had the dinner last night where we told your stories, and it was just a really special evening. So let me ask, what's it been like to be named a young hero and to be honored for your accomplishments?
I feel like it's been an honor because, when bad things happen to you, you don't really expect anything to come from it. And then to have something specifically for young people who've had bad things happen to them, it just feels really good to be seen.
Mm-hmm. Philip, I remember you talking about that too. You were the first up to speak, talking about adversity, but overcoming it and actually achieving a lot and thriving. Talk about that.
So I don't really think much of everything I go through really. Like I like to say NF1 doesn't. I have NF1, but it doesn't have me. Saying I just make the most of what I have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Claire, I remember last night you saying something about feeling seen, and you said, it's all too often maybe adults, old folks like me, can be dismissive of young folks' problems by saying, well, you're young, you'll get over it. But you said we shouldn't be dismissive, you said you felt seen. Talk about that.
Yeah, I think it's just really important to recognize that just because we are young people doesn't mean that we can't face adversity. And I think that APT having this scholarship, it's not only life-changing in that we can pick which university we really want to go to because of the money, but also just the recognition that young people do face adversity, and it takes strength to get through that.
Mm-hmm. Maddie, let me ask you, what would your message be to folks younger than yourself? Maybe they're in grade school or junior high, facing adversity, unexpected challenges, about how to withstand that and to pursue achievements.
My advice would be everyone's going to go through challenges at some point in their life, but you just have to have your goals set, and that no matter what you go through, you have to have your mind right and just keep pushing towards your goals no matter what.
Mm-hmm. So I know y'all visited the legislature today, right? What was it like seeing the House and Senate and the government at work?
I think it was really cool and kind of eye-opening in a sense about what our state goes through and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Did y'all meet some of your own state lawmakers? I think Clyde Chambliss was there last night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you. You talked about college and things like that. We'll just kind of go down the line. What are your plans after high school? You've got a head start with a $10,000 scholarship now. Can I start with you?
I'm going to go to the University of Montevallo, and I'm going to major in art and minor in education.
Wow, that's great. Phil?
I'm going to Mississippi State University, and my declared major is electrical engineering.
How about that?
I'm going to Auburn, and right now my major is biology, and I plan to go pre-med.
Wow, okay. Up top?
I'm going to UAB, and I'm majoring in neuroscience. I'm also on a pre-med track.
Wow.
I'm actually still deciding, but I'm between Samford University and their Theater for Youth program and Calvin University.
How about that?
I'm going to the University of North Alabama for social work.
That's great. That's fantastic. I'm really excited to follow your career paths and everything. I'm just really glad that none of you are majoring in broadcast journalism, so you won't take my job, because I think it's clear that you are high achievers in the face of adversity, and that's what makes us admire you so much, and what makes us so proud to honor your accomplishments. So congratulations. Thank you for being here and allowing us to showcase you, and good luck in your careers.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org. Click on the Online Video tab on the main page. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. You're watching Alabama Public Television.
Welcome back to Capital Journal. Joining me next is Rhonda Mann, Executive Director of Voices for Alabama's Children. Rhonda, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Well, I want to get to the Kids Count data book and all the things that we need to talk about, but I wanted to sort of get you to remind our viewers about Voices and its mission here in the state.
Right. So Voices for Alabama's Children was founded in 1992 in response to national data that ranked Alabama 48th in overall child well-being. So you could say at the very heart of everything that we do is data. Our mission is to speak for Alabama's children through research, public awareness, and advocacy.
Okay, so speaking of that, today was the release of the always anticipated Kids Count data book. So walk us through this. What we have a report every year, so that's good because we have these benchmarks. What did this year's report show? What were the top lines?
So I want to just mention this year's book is the 30th edition of our Kids Count data book. So it's kind of a year that we took a look back. We invited our state agency heads to help us reflect over the last 30 years of what was child being like for the area that you worked. What are the issues that you no longer are having to deal with? What are new and emerging issues? And what are we looking at going forward? So that part is very interesting, and I'm not going to share really any of that with everybody because I'd like for the viewers, I'd like for you to have something to look forward to when you go online and look at the book.
Yeah, and we'll put the link up so everybody can see it.
Great, great. So our demographics, what we're seeing, what we've been talking about for years is that our total population is growing. And it grew by about 750,000 people, so we're over 5 million people in our state now. But our child population is growing at so much slower a pace that as a percentage of total population, that's where we're seeing it not keep up. So we're about 4 percentage points behind where we were 10, 20 years ago.
In terms of the rate of growth?
In terms of the child population as a percent of the total population, right. So the child population grew by about 250,000. So there's about a $500,000 person difference. And you know what that means is not only are we a graying society, I heard somebody call it a silver tsunami. I thought that was kind of interesting because I'm a part of that tsunami. But what it means is that those that are coming up, the workforce, is going to be smaller, and they're going to have more baby boomers and older people to take care of.
Yeah.
So that's an extra weight on their shoulders. We've got to make sure that every child is prepared to fill some kind of role in helping our economy continue and to take care of our older population. Our population is changing. It continues to change. We've reported this before as well, that the makeup of our child population, it is not at 50% yet for children of color, but our white population is right around 47%, I'm sorry, 53%, and so we're very close to children of color being the majority of our population.
Interesting.
And when we talk about that, what factors in that's so important are the outcomes that don't keep up with the rest of the child population, that children of color and children in poverty are impacted at a greater degree than other children.
Yeah, let's talk about that because, I mean, historically we have seen that, the outcomes and just sort of the disparity. It's geographic in terms of rural and suburban and urban. It's demographic in terms of, like you said, children of color. So talk about some of that disparity and what we learned this year from the data.
Yeah. So in our health, we still have about 96-97% of our children are covered by health insurance. And we all think that's great. You know, we want to be there. We would like to have 100%, but it's hard to get to some of the children in the rural areas. The problem is access to resources. And so we have a huge majority of our children that are on Medicaid. But if providers stop participating and accepting Medicaid patients, then many of our children and families won't have resources. They won't have a doctor to go to. So the health insurance is only one piece of the answer. We have to have providers that will accept that insurance. And they're not all covered by Medicaid, but a large majority are. So that's a concern, not just for children, but also because we've been very supportive of closing the gap in insurance coverage for working Alabamians. And so a lot of people call it Medicaid expansion. It could be any kind of insurance solution, but if providers won't accept it, then we're going to have a problem with people finding the resources.
Yeah, and that's what I actually find interesting about this whole all health public-private partnership thing that gets being discussed, because it wouldn't be a Medicaid card. It might be like a Blue Cross card or something,
Right.
which might offer more open doors in terms of doctors.
Yeah, it might. We won't know until we
know.
see.
Sorry.
Until
Sorry,
we
not
see
to
it.
get
No,
distracted, but yeah.
that was fine. I just wanted to mention that because I think it's really important. And so, here's a new bit of information that we added this year. 25 counties offer no obstetrical care. 25 counties.
Wow.
And so nearly 28% of women of childbearing age have no birthing hospital within 30 minutes of where they live. And when you think about that, and you also think about our infant mortality rate, we did see a slight rate increase by like a 0.5 percentage point over previous years. That's 443 babies. So let me put that in perspective for you. That is 24 classrooms of pre-K children that won't ever go to school.
That's sobering.
Yeah, that's a lot. So a 0.5 percentage point is meaningful when you think of it in that terms. Unfortunately, our black babies still continue to die at a rate twice as high as any other race or ethnicity. And so
it's information that we need. And it can be tough. It can be tough, but we have to know the information if we're going to have any kind of solution. So when people go online and see the Kids Count Data book, what should they think about it in terms of, okay, this is the information we can use to guide policies for solutions?
Well, it is to identify issues and guide policies and solutions, but it's also to track the same policies and solutions. Are we having the desired outcomes? But we also have to understand, for instance, First Class Pre-K is one of those programs that we've sort of hung our hat on, and it's a program we've received high quality marks for 17 years in a row. And we feel like it's a great fix for kids being ready to learn, but we're serving less than 50% of our children. So you have to take into consideration, if it's a program, when the program went into effect, how many children were exposed to it, and when can you reasonably expect to see outcomes impacted by that. But you got to wait for the data to catch up with how many children are being impacted.
Well, look, while I have you, I wanted to talk about this child care roadmap. A roadmap to support Alabama's parents, children, employers, and the economy. This is this new report that y'all came out with today. You've got some partners involved too.
Well, now that one came out in February.
Oh,
so,
did it? Okay.
Yes.
Well, I know there was an event this week. So talk about this child care roadmap and what we can learn from it.
So what we know is that our economy is dependent on child care. Without parents that are working being able to find child care, then they don't work. In the first 6 months of last year, our research showed that working parents on average with young children missed 46 hours of work just because of child care.
Yeah.
Child care is operating at about 72 to 75% of capacity because of the lack of workers. We pay on average our child care providers less than $11 an hour, and 38% have a BS degree in early education.
And yet it's really expensive for parents.
It's extremely expensive, and that's the problem, is that most child care providers are not even charging what it costs them to run a child care center.
Well, I know there's legislation in the legislature right now. Are you all supportive of that?
Yes, we are. It's a child care tax credit bill. It would incentivize employers to help offset the cost of their employees' child care, either through having on-site child care or offering it as a sort of a cash benefit towards the cost of child care. There's another part of that bill that would give money to our child care providers based on their quality rating through the QRS program and the number of children that they are taking in that are on child care subsidies, so low-income families.
Well, look, I hate we're out of time, but I encourage everybody, and we'll put the link up, to go online and check out this roadmap, but as well as the Kids Count data book. It's really important information. Rhonda, thanks so much for coming and sharing this information.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.
The quilters of Gee's Bend are world-renowned for their traditional quilt designs. The inhabitants of the small Alabama river town are mostly descendants of enslaved African Americans. Gee's Bend has demonstrated a persistent cultural wealth in the vibrant style of its quilts. Quilt making has a long history in Alabama, and there are no finer examples of this art form than the motifs and craftsmanship of the quilts of Gee's Bend.
That's our show for tonight. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow night for our Week in Review episode. That's 7:30 here on Alabama Public Television. For our Capital Journal team, I'm Todd Stacy. We'll see you next time.